Again, Alan mentioned it, holdings contract. And this is getting Grenke, and as Alan said, some of these are agreeing to it, and that's because their exposure is less because those stage payments. It's getting Grenke to say, okay, once an investigation occurs from the Ombudsman, it's not going to be good for us in PR terms if we are seen to be really hitting small businesses on the high street. So, can we do something to get them to say, actually, it's good for our business if we just sit on this whilst the Ombudsman looks into what's actually occurred and potentially action is taken by the regulator after that. PR is vital to that. To me, at the moment, it's really quite fragmented, and I think everyone's going to talk about it in more detail. But there are, people putting comments on reviews. Grenke are awful. They won't, they're not talking to me. They won't respond. They're still making me pay. I think the PR's got to be much more targeted to get them to realise the scale of the issue, and also to get them to realise that they're being the bad guys here. Their competition, this lot, being the good guys, and it's that sort of balance, and it needs a good PR plan to be built. The risk behind all of this is that the Ombudsman stops his investigation. Well, first part of that is the Ombudsman doesn't initiate his investigation. It's happening at the moment, but they can drop it at any point, or they can get further into it and just say, we're not going to do it, we're not going to take any action. And that takes all the pressure off Grenke, because obviously nothing bad happened on the vision asset, finance, or the viewable side of it. So there is a bit of a risk to that, and we've got to work against that. And Grenke, the other risk is Grenke just saying, no, we're not going to play ball, we don't care about the PR, we're just going to push forward. We've been working to contact Grenke AG, the parent in Germany, because I work for German investment banks. I know what they're like with the regulator, I know what they're like with bad PR. We've got to structure a conversation with them where they realise that the 3% of business that's in the UK, the tiny bit of business globally that's in Northern Ireland and involved in this particular thing, isn't worth the bad PR they get. That's where we've got to go with that conversation. Regulatory action. We obviously can't do this, but we can get the regulators to do it. And this response is primarily Vision Asset Finance. They're the FCA authorised business that the regulator will look at. Did they do their job as they should have? But it also spins off a bit to Grenke, because they're FCA regulated, and GC Financial Solutions, who are umbrella. And Viewble Media were regulated, so the regulators got a responsibility when they were operating this scam. The regulators should have been on it earlier, in my view. But what this needs to happen is everyone's got to complain. Everyone's got to get into the financial ombudsman with the, I have been ripped off, I think, here, because it's regulated, and I would like you to investigate that. I've done that for the business that I work with, and they are investigating. I know there are other investigations going on. If we build enough momentum with that, they will eventually bundle it, and they'll have one big investigation. And to me, that's where politicians and PR come in. They've got to get on the regulator and get them pushing against it. And like I said, politicians and PR, important. Final action in this part is, we could litigate, but it's risky, it's expensive, and all those other things that make it not a good place to go. There are other ways to solve this. Additional response, Viewble Media, they were without doubt at fault behind this. My assumption is those fund or ad contracts weren't in place. They went into administration with £360,000 in the bank. Really, really strange. Why would a business ever do that? My thoughts on it is they knew that the taxman is the first man to come after it. If we've got enough money in the business and administration to pay our taxes, HMRC will step in, take their cut, and then lose interest. If the taxman doesn't get paid, he has real powers to dig deeper. So I think they've been really cunning about how they stepped into administration. There is now about, I think, 120, 140,000 pounds left there. The liquidators, Ori Clark, are dealing with it. There is a claims form that you can fill in and send to them, and you might get some compensation back out of that pot. It'll be pennies in the pound, to be honest, but it sends a strong message to the regulator that the liquidator is getting more of those claims. Final bit, do you go after the directors of Viewble Media, who, although the company's in liquidation, they have a responsibility, and you could sue. Again, expensive, high costs, and actually, where are their assets? If you do that successfully, you win. They've hidden their assets because they've been sort of smart. There are lots of risks there, and I'm not going to advise on that as an option. So you've got, across this, I think 3 options at the moment. Sorry, just one thing, another thing I want to step back on. I should have mentioned when I went through. As I started digging into these entities and their structures and their directors and their finances, the thing that absolutely screamed something, some sort of foul play going on, is where's the money and what do their finances look like. These people, before this scam occurred, were basically trading insolvent. They had £360,000 of negative shareholder equity, one person owning the business, auditors commenting on their accounts, that in effect they're trading insolvently, but the director reckons he's going to make good of it. To me, that is a real incentive to do something wrong and make money. These people ticking along going nowhere for years, and they're now doing quite well out there. And that just, to me, smacks of reason to commit something like this scam. So, what are our option responses? There are 3 things that run sort of in parallel. Get Grenke by a whole bunch of means, and that is by taking legal advice and trying to turn the legal thumbscrews on them, by using PR, by using a collective voice through the Ombudsman, all those sort of means. Get them to say to you lot, okay, you've got a payment hold on your contract whilst the regulator digs into what went on in this scam. And I think we can have a sensible conversation at this Grenke UK, or possibly in Germany, their bosses level, to say this is a sensible way to take this ahead, because you've been scammed. The victims here are Grenke and you lot. So actually we should be working together, a few steps to get there. So step number 1, get those hold. Step number 2, use the Ombudsman by you lot complaining to start digging a proper regulatory dig into what they did. If they find wrong, they can award compensation to sole traders, probably not to the incorporated entities, and it might open a route for litigation. If the Ombudsman finds absolute fault there, it might make litigation easier. Not that I'm recommending that option, but that's the second part of it. Third part of it is really the only thing you can do with Viewble Media is you can write to Ori Clark, fill that form, and you might get a little bit of compensation. Second part is sue the directors. Not that I'm recommending that again. Any questions on that? I've rattled through an awful lot there. It's taken me months to get my head around.
So that's like I'm a UCFS, and I don't understand whether 90% of your bad credit rating or UCFS, because I wouldn't take nothing except the UCFS now £20,000 because I get 2 screens.
Assumption on that credit rating thing. Why do they have this split?
I don't UCFS, and I don't, that's